I think I'm bang on time, so I'm just going to give everyone a chance to join. Alright guys, can you let me know if you can hear me okay? Hello Ruby! Let me know if you can hear me alright, give me a like or something if you can hear me okay. I know I had a few problems with my last talk, so I'm hoping they're sorted now. I can see a man working on the Wi-Fi box at the end of our street, so I may have a few problems. If that happens, what I'll do is I will end the current live, jump back on via my phone signal. I have tried to do that already, but it seemed to be a little bit misbehaving. Okay, I am going to get started. So first of all, if you don't know me or you haven't heard of me already, my name is Emma Phillips. I run Paw by Paw training in Dorchester, Dorset, and a friend and I run Terrier-tastic dog training, which is an online service for all kind of terrier things. This talk is one I have done before on my business page, Paw by Paw Training, and it's one that I did because it's something that people need to talk about more. A few disclaimers. If at any point you want to share something with me that you don't want to be seen publicly, you can by all means message me at Paw by Paw Training, or you can email me at emma@pawbypawtraining.co.uk. Please don't send messages about this to my personal profile, as it is something that I'm sure everyone can appreciate. You need a break from every now and again, and if they're in my business inbox, then I have kind of systems in place that I can kind of access them when I'm ready. On that note, please feel free to contact me about it. So when I did my last talk, I had loads of people reaching out to me, and I am more than happy to talk it through with people. I appreciate it's something that is very kind of heartfelt. It's very emotional, and I know that people need support through it. I am happy to be that support system for you. So do feel like you can talk to me, you can reach out to me personally, but please make sure it's in a business capacity versus a personal one. Thank you very much for Ruby for having me at the conference and for letting me do this talk. When I mentioned this topic, she was very enthusiastic about it, and I know it's not an easy talk to be having. I will be answering questions, so if you have any questions at any point, feel free to pop them in the chat. I'm speaking from a place of personal experience as an owner and as a professional. So you need to be aware that usually I kind of have carte blanche over questions I'm happy to answer. I will quite happily give away secrets that I train of how I train something or something like that. But for this, something might be too personal for me to answer. It's not a case of I may never answer you. I may be able to write it down, but I like not to be crying in front of thousands of people. So it might not be something that I can answer here and now, but that doesn't mean if you message me about it. If you message me about it and I go, no, I'm really sorry, I can't answer that, please respect that. But if I can't answer it now, feel free to shoot that to a message to me so that I can get back to you if I'm able to do so at a later date. Right. So you might want some tissues for this one. I've got a nice glass of bottle of water. I may take a few breaks just to have a few breaths throughout, because obviously it's not the easiest of chats to have. But we're going to get started. So what is behavioural euthanasia? Behavioural euthanasia is where a dog is put down for behavioural reasons versus kind of end of life or medical reasons solely. It need not be solely behavioural reasons. It can be behavioural combined with medical, or behavioural combined with kind of general old age or things like that. It's not just for behaviour. The context I'm talking about, and whatever, if I ever refer to the context I've been through, it was mainly behavioural, but we suspect medical as well. We just didn't have the resources to go and confirm that, and we made the decision based on purely behavioural kind of aspects, although everyone involved is convinced there was some form of medical element to it as well. There are a few misconceptions that I hope to kind of dispel, and there are a few things that I hope to reassure people with. And like I said, if you have any questions at any point, pop them in the comments. I do tend to ignore comments as I go through talks because they distract me awfully. But if I catch one and I see that it's relevant, or I haven't got it on my list to answer, I'll jump in every now and again. So when it comes to behavioural euthanasia, I think it's different, and the majority of people who I've spoken to would agree with me that it is different from typical euthanasia, because in terms of people's opinions, they are very different. They are very strong. All are fueled by emotions. I would argue that all are fueled with the interest of the individual dog or animal, because obviously this can happen with other species as well, at heart. And it is an ethical decision. So my ethical line on where I decide to go through ethical behavioural euthanasia is going to be different from someone else's. That is fine. What I think we need to bear in mind is that it's hard no matter what you're doing. It's a hard decision. And I think you should respect. It's not one that I'm willing to debate ethics with quite a few people. There are many, many avenues where I will actively sit down and go, you know what, I think this because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm quite happy to justify it. People, my friends, they know I'm quite up for a dog training debate. This is one I won't debate. I go, this is my line. And to be honest with you, my line moves case by case by case. And that is something that I think we should respect. And this isn't something that I necessarily think should be debated as if it were a training kind of issue. It's not like a force-free versus Lima debate. It's an individual personal experience, and you need not, and you guys from this talk will not understand everything that we went through with Shenzi to make the decision to put him through euthanasia for his behaviour. I'm not going to attempt to explain all of those reasons because someone will disagree with me on it. And that's fine. You have every right to disagree with me on it. But I don't want to debate it. I don't want to know your disagreements because it's been and done. Any disagreement we have is just going to serve to make me feel bad. It's going to serve to make whoever's been through or is considering going through behavioural euthanasia, it's going to make them feel bad. And I don't think that helps. I think that contributes to the kind of idea that if someone puts a dog through behavioural euthanasia, they are at fault. They have failed the dog in front of them. They have not done enough. They have not tried every avenue. They are weak for not being able to give the dog a home. They are, and I'm not going to go through everything that I've seen people being called for putting a dog through behavioural euthanasia, because quite frankly, it's not fun to think about. But in terms of when it comes to behavioural euthanasia, in my opinion, no one is at fault. Even if you decided to euthanize a dog for behaviour reasons at a point prior to when I would make that call, you know what, in non-COVID times, if you're a hugging person, I'm going to give you a hug, say it's okay, you made the best decision you had with the knowledge that you had in front of you at that time for the dog in front of you, with all of the information you have. And a really common argument that comes up is, what about rehoming? Rehoming is always an option. And yes, it is. I'm going to argue that it's not always ethical, though, either for everyone else involved or for the dog in front of you. Now, Carla Delahaye, when I first did this talk, she threw in the term a unicorn home, and I absolutely love it, and I've stolen it, and absolutely shamelessly I'm stealing it. Sorry, Carla. With Shenzi, we had determined that he could not live in a home with other dogs. He needed not a family home, so we also decided no children, a very quiet home. Essentially what he needed was someone who owns land and that was entirely secure, that they could let him run around in until he could no longer handle that. That is a unicorn home. Yes, that home exists. I am 100% sure if we waited for that dog's whole life, we could have found him a home. Is it ethical to keep him? That could have taken us 10 years. It could have taken us 8 years. It could have taken us 5 years. It could have taken us a year. It could have taken us 6 months. Is that ethical? We decided with the consultation of multiple behaviourists, veterinary behaviourists, multiple vets, and multiple professionals kind of below those qualifications, we decided he could not remain in the home he was in, and we had a time pressure on that. Another dog's life was at risk. Humans' mental health was at risk, and management could not effectively and safely be put in place. So it wasn't ethical to try, in my opinion, and the opinion of many of those who advised us, to try and find Shenzi a home that was his unicorn home. And all of us were convinced that home was out there. We knew we could find him a nice home. We just we knew it would take us a long time to find that home, and we all made the decision that rescue wasn't appropriate. Shelters weren't appropriate, so kind of sanctuaries, that's the word I was looking for, not shelters. A sanctuary wouldn't be appropriate because he could not live around other dogs. Any environment like that is going to have other dogs that are in similar situations, and we decided that that was not appropriate for him. Now, it gets a little bit complicated when I talk about Shenzi because I did not own him. So Shenzi is a dog I took on as a foster puppy. He came to me at either 14 or 16 weeks, I can't remember. When I went to go and meet him, I went to the family home, and this 14 or 16-week-old puppy spent 15 minutes growling and barking at me with his hackles up. 15 minutes at that young age. He was petrified of noises. He had multiple stereotypical behaviours that changed day by day by day. And the triggers for those changed. One day it would be a plane flying overhead. The other day it would be a fly being present. I believe he tried to chase a fly and brought a TV down on top of him. He smashed into a wall so hard, he brought a TV down on top of him and carried on going for the fly. That's the sort of stereotypical kind of obsessive nature we're talking about when it comes to Shenzi. I had him for 2 weeks. I found him the perfect home with the world's most wonderful lady, who I'm still very much friends with, and she's one of my favourite colleagues to go to whenever I've got an idea or I need help or I want to work an idea through. She's got loads of experience with the same breeds in similar situations. She was looking for a puppy. It was perfect time in her life. We agreed a pickup date. We sorted everything out, and he went to her. She was wonderful, and although she owned him, she kept me involved at every single stage. So she... when it came to deciding his name, I had a few ideas. As everyone knows, or if you don't know me, I have pastel terriers called Timon and Pumbaa, and I wanted a Lion King themed name. I suggested Zazu. She said, not so keen on that, and then I suggested Shenzi, and she loved it, and we named him together. Any kind of behavioural training decisions she made, she always ran them past me. Equipment decisions, she got my advice. Dietary decisions, she got my advice. She didn't always go with what I said, and I was absolutely fine with that. I am so grateful to her for keeping me in the loop as much as she did. Every single kind of move she took with him, she ran it past me, or she went, I'm going to go and do this, and I would say, that's a really great idea. We were very careful about introducing Shenzi to the current dog. She knew where she would have to work on things. When he was with me, I basically trained what she wanted me to train versus what I felt. I did tell her what I felt he should be trained, but what she was most worried about is where I spent my focus. So although I didn't own Shenzi, I was very involved in his life, and my mum was also very involved. So it was kind of a team of 3-4 of us, and it was really difficult. It was, as he started to get worse, it felt very, very overwhelming. And we very quickly realised that he could not live in a home with the other dog, and that the other dog was at risk of dying if it stayed in this home. That dog existed first, therefore he could not stay. And from there, we tried to go and have the medical side addressed. We really, really tried. We were convinced, all of us, that there was a medical element going on. We went and we went and we went and we went and we went. We tried everything. We got various supporters on board. And in terms of when it came to making the decision, it was really gut-wrenching. It felt like we had failed. And it felt like we had let him down to a certain extent, collectively. When it came... I'm going to talk generally about going through it as an owner before I go through what happened on the day, because I'm not sure I can get through that and then continue. So if you are considering behavioural euthanasia as an owner, get professionals on board, get objective advice, and have it be people you trust and who you can ask questions to. So you don't want someone who's gruff and says, no, that dog needs to kind of be put to sleep or something like that straight away. You want someone who you can go, why do you think that? What about this? Is there anything else we can do to address this? What can we do in the meantime to make the dog's life better? And you don't want someone who pushes you through that. So I would try, if you can find a professional who will stay with you, but kind of refer on as much as you can. So I was Shenzi's kind of main behaviour practitioner, but I very much referred the case on, and those people kept me in the loop. We did try and go and see veterinary behaviourists. Unfortunately, we either got the solution that the dog definitely couldn't stay in the home or should be put to sleep straight away, without kind of any further investigation, or they didn't get in touch with us again. So a veterinary behaviourist never actively worked with him, if that makes sense. We were just kind of given that advice from the get-go. And it's important to know that when it came to the time to make this decision, Shenzi was 6 months old. So he was a very, very young dog. And before I came to the realisation, as a behaviour practitioner, before I came to the realisation that I felt euthanasia was the best option for Shenzi, I very much would have said I'd never put a dog that young to sleep, ever. And that was a difficult pill to swallow, to look at this dog who's not even a year old and go, mate, I don't know what we can do with you. There's no way we can keep you safe. There's no way we can keep the others around you safe. And it is, as an owner, you need a really solid support system from your professionals, from your vet, from your behaviourist, from your veterinary behaviourist if it gets that far, and have multiples. There's nothing wrong with that. So everyone who worked with Shenzi worked together. It was not a solitary thing. One person's report went to everyone else, went to everyone else, went to everyone else. We had opinions from those who ran sanctuaries, for those who ran rescues, some of the biggest rescues in the UK. We had some big names involved, and people that I previously had trusted with any kind of training or behaviour decision that I had ever kind of come up against, who had a huge history of the sort of work we were going with. There was no stone we left unturned besides the medical stuff. And the reason the medical stuff was chosen not to go into was because the behaviour was just escalating so much and so quickly that we really didn't have the time on our side. The kind of priority was what to do with Shenzi and how to get there as fast as possible. And I don't mean that was it. When I say that, I mean finding him a home, finding him a rescue, finding him a sanctuary or something like that as fast as possible, so that we could keep him safe. And that it was challenging. And actually, after Shenzi was put to sleep, 2 weeks later, a control order was put on him. So this 6-month-old puppy had to be kept on lead for the rest of his life and had to wear a muzzle for the rest of his life. He wasn't typed, he wasn't of breed, so he wasn't a type that needed that control order placed on him, but because of his behaviour, that dog would never have had off-lead life again, and he would have had to have been muzzled every time he left the house for life. And that, I think, made the decision in retrospect slightly easier, because we saved him from that. And that's not to say if you've got a dog who's got a control order on them that they don't have good lives. They absolutely can do. But for a dog so young, and in my opinion, granted, I'm incredibly biased, the control order was not a fair one. Yes, he had caused damage. No, it wasn't that severe. No, it wasn't to a human. No, it couldn't have been managed. Yes, it was an accident. It was just one of those unlucky things. And it wasn't severe damage from memory. It didn't require huge veterinary attention. He had caused damage that required veterinary attention, but to the other dog in the house, not to the dog that actually triggered the control of dogs order on him. So the alternatives for Shenzi as owners looked really, really tough. When it comes to a support system, be very careful where you post about behavioural euthanasia on Facebook. There is a wonderful Facebook group called Losing Lulu, and absolutely go and check that out. that support system is wonderful, even if you just lurk there. I lurked there for a little while, long after everything happened. But get a group of people who you can talk to about it safely, and make sure that if they give you their opinions, that those opinions are going to be considerate of what you're going through. I had, actually, I'll get to that later. I'm just going to write myself a note about that before I forget it. If you've got any questions, guys, shove them in. I know I've seen a few comments, but I know that one is going to make me cry, so I'm ignoring it for now. There's nothing wrong with counselling and seeking out kind of professional mental help. Especially when it comes to behavioural euthanasia, I feel as owners we take on a lot more blame than we would if it were just simple end of life. Euthanasia, kind of old age creeping in, things like that. I think if you've got a dog with a physical injury, that's much easier for you to accept, and certainly as long as that injury wasn't caused by kind of a dog sport or something like that, it was just a freak accident sort of thing, because those do happen. You can forgive yourself more easily for those. You take on less of the blame. Whereas when it comes to behaviour euthanasia, I spent months torturing myself going, we could have done this, we should have done this, why didn't we do that? Did I set him and his new owner up? Did I see something in those 2 weeks he was with me that said this was going to happen? Because I would never have rehomed him if I felt that was going to be the solution. I felt so much guilt for giving his new owner a dog. Like, she had gone through a period of intense loss herself, and she needed a friend to be there, and I felt like I had just given her more loss. I felt a lot of guilt over that, and I really beat myself up over everything I saw in the 2 weeks he was with me. I went, gosh, could I have done that? Should I have? Am I good at my job? And it's hard to separate for me the personal and the professional, because I am both. But I really did feel an intense period of grief, and I beat myself up. I am going to preface this with, I have not been through euthanasia for any other reason, so I can't compare them. And I know that kind of the stages of grief and all of that, but I definitely was finding fault in things that I have not seen people find fault in when they've gone through end-of-life euthanasia. And when I say end-of-life, all euthanasia is end-of-life. I'm referring to kind of old-age euthanasia for natural reasons, or medical, kind of, this needs to happen in order for the dog's quality of life. And I've asked myself questions that I'm sure a form of those questions creep into people's heads when they've experienced euthanasia, but they are more based on the, did I wait too long, did I wait too soon, versus the, should I have seen signs of this kind of months ago, why didn't I see signs of this? Often, I'm not a medical professional. There's a reason I'm a behaviour practitioner and not a vet, and it's because I can't stand the sight of blood. So if it's a medical reason, I can forgive myself for not recognising that until the vet points it out to me and says that needs to happen, because I'm not experiencing that. But because I am a behaviour professional, it is something I have knowledge of, and I feel, if I'm having a bad day about it, I still feel like I should have seen it well before it happened. And if I'm being completely honest, I think I was one of the first people to come to the conclusion of behavioural euthanasia. The owner and my mum weren't talking about it, and I shared that with a friend outside of that months before, I think at least a month before the official kind of group decision was made that that's what would happen. When you are discussing the decision, when you're making the decision, I've already said be careful who you discuss it with on Facebook and which groups you discuss it in, because there are people out there who believe behavioural euthanasia shouldn't exist, and that all any dog needs is love. Now, I see where those people are coming from. I respect their intentions. I think they are incorrect in their conclusions. But that is you're going to feel enough guilt. You're going to beat yourself up about it enough. You don't need that from other people. If you get any of that, block the person immediately, close the post, delete the post, and take yourself away from social media, but also be incredibly careful about who you talk to about it in person. I desperately wanted to go and see my grandma, but I knew that she would put her foot in her mouth. So I didn't see her. I actively stayed away because I knew she would have the best intentions in the world, but she would end up making me feel worse about it than I needed to. I already felt pretty crap about it. So also be kind of careful and considerate who you discuss it with. I am so fortunate as a behavioural practitioner that I've got some wonderful friends in the dog world, and I could speak to so many people about it and they would reassure me. I had one behavioural professional, or one dog professional, who actually said things that weren't helpful and I find offensive to this day. But that was one out of the many who were incredibly supportive and incredibly helpful. If there is a team of you, like there was with me, because I appreciate that the dog world can be quite complex, there can be multiple people involved if there's a whole family involved, and I'm talking about this after the fact, and I'm going to explain what I mean and then explain why I'm saying this. Discuss the actual event. Discuss how you want that to happen, where you want that to happen. That discussion in the context of what we went through didn't happen. It was more a case of it needs to happen, we've organised it, and it happened. For me, it was my first experience of euthanasia. I had read up about it in advance to try and prepare myself. I wish I had spoken to the vet beforehand and asked what was going to happen as it happened. And I felt I couldn't ask questions because I was letting the rest of the team down. And that's all I'm going to say about that, I'm afraid. Okay, I'm going to check these comments. Yep, so if you're having to come back to this video later, mad props. It's, it's certainly not easy to sit and kind of listen to a whole hour's talk on. Vicky, you're very welcome. So Vicky has said, hope I never have to deal with this, but very grateful to hear about your experiences. Hopefully learn more compassion around the subject and know there are people to offer solid advice and support. If anyone else needs it. So thanks for discussing such a difficult topic. Ruby, you have said, defo agree. I know people who've had hideous experiences with reactions from rescue and other professionals, etc. Not right or fair. I'm convinced that most behavioural use do have medical reasons behind them. You need to realise that dogs have mental health issues too. You lived it, they haven't. Absolutely, Ruby. Yeah, I am completely with you there. It is... Anyone who's going through or considering going through behavioural euthanasia is, quite frankly, I don't like to swear in this talk, but they're having a really shit time. You do not need to be adding to that, even if you disagree. Like, even if someone came to me from this talk and said, we're going through behavioural euthanasia for this, and I violently disagreed, I'm going to be compassionate about my response. If they ask me my opinion on whether or not now is the time for behavioural euthanasia, I might say no. I would give my opinion then, but unless I'm actively asked for my opinion, I'm going to keep my mouth shut about it. There's no point trying to beat someone else up for it further. And anyone who is violently against behavioural euthanasia, I'm trying to phrase this nicely so I sound like a nice person. You need to go through it in order to realise. This is why I'm doing these talks. This is why I'm trying to get people to understand how hard it is. You can see how hard it is to talk about. You need to appreciate that could be the thing that pushes the person over the edge. You don't need to make yourself feel worse for it. And you really... It's not something that you need to be nasty about in any way, shape or form. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. I'm going to ignore the comments for now because you're all going to set me off again, so I'm going to crack on. Okay, so if you are a behaviour practitioner, and for now I'm kind of done with the owner stuff. If you have any questions as being taking on a behavioural euthanasia case or dealing with a behavioural euthanasia case as an owner, pop them in the comments or shoot me an email or shoot me a message, something like that. But for now, I'm going into professional mode because that's less likely to induce tears, and I've started myself off, so I'm going to carry on. But I'm going to do it from the kind of dog trainer or behaviour practitioner side of it. First of all, bloody well take care of yourselves. I know we're awful for it. And after Shenzi, I did give myself a week off. My wonderful assistant, Julia, she did take on an awful lot of my classes because obviously putting a 6-month-old dog down and then going to train a whole bunch of 6-month-old dogs, I could not do it. So Julia did take on my classes and she was an absolute legend helping me out. So take care of yourself. One person, when I was going through it, they advised me to take 3 months off at difficult behaviour cases. Anything that looked like it was heading towards euthanasia, take 6 months off, 3 to 6 months off from it. I read that message and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll be fine. I was not fine. Listen to that advice and pay attention to it and do it. I had a case with a Rottweiler who was a potential bite risk. Fortunately, I say fortunately, for me, not for the owners or the dogs, that dog ended up being confiscated by the police before I ever got to see it, before they'd even booked in. And that dog was euthanized. I had 3 clients' dogs euthanized in one day for various reasons. I think 2 were behavioural and 1 was medical. Within a month of Shenzi being put to sleep. And I remember just sitting in the bath and crying my eyes out. And if I have a euthanasia case or anything that looks like it's heading that way, I refer all my cases on, I refund where necessary. It is not worth the emotional strain of putting that on yourself when you have gone through something. So yes, as a behaviour practitioner, even if I take the kind of personal emotions out of the whole Shenzi case, you need to look after yourself. You need to look after yourself in the long term. And I'm not quite making this comparison. And actually, no, I'm going to say that in a second. But if you're a behaviour practitioner, limit your bite cases. Limit your human bite cases, your dog bite cases, and limit your euthanasia cases. If you have a euthanasia case, have people that you can refer to, or just have in your terms and conditions, I may need to pause clients. So if you've taken a bite case on and they still need a little bit of help, but they're not in kind of danger, have it in your terms and conditions that you may take some time off from behaviour work if you go through a euthanasia case. Your clients will understand that. They don't want you turning up and bursting into tears, whether that be on Zoom or in person or whatever. You need to be emotionally sound in order to deal with your further cases. So make sure that you have systems in place to accommodate for that. Be prepared to bite the bullet, move people on if they need help now and you need to take the time for yourself. Apologise to them. I personally would refund for that. I know people who wouldn't. I personally will. And it is well worth the kind of take on puppies. I also run reactive rovers classes, which I'm doing a talk on. I have no idea, and I'm not checking my diary right now. But I would take 6-week break from them if I've had a euthanasia case. Take the pressure off and just go back to enjoying dogs. Book in a whole bunch of sessions with one-to-ones for agility, for hoopers, for scent work, with trainers you like and get on with. Just remember to enjoy the love of kind of working your job again. Take that pressure off. If you work with someone and they can take on a few cases with your help, but kind of distance yourself from it, by all means do that as well. I am going to get into this a little bit more in my final talk on Saturday at 9 o'clock, I believe, in why you should become a behaviour practitioner. And spoiler alert, it's because we need more behaviour practitioners so that we can share the load rather than one of us taking a massive load on. But tune in on Saturday at 9 for that one. Exactly, Ruby. If you have a breakdown, you can't help as many dogs long term, and you need to be when it comes to your clients, to a certain extent, you need to be the emotionless one. And obviously we feel emotions. Obviously we do. Otherwise I wouldn't be telling you to take that break. But you need to be the one who can make rational decisions. You need to be the one who can go, oh no, we can't do that because that might lead to behavioural euthanasia. If you're thinking in any way like that, you're not helping your clients out as you should. The next thing I'm going to say is be bloody grateful to your vets. At the end of the day, we are not the ones pulling the trigger, as it were. And I am in awe of the vets I work with. I really am. And I know there are a lot of tensions between vets and behaviour practitioners, especially when you're first starting out and you're trying to get vets on your side. But at the end of the day, the vets are the ones to make the decisions with the owner. And you should be grateful and supportive of your vets. There's the movement at the moment going on that says not one more vet. There's a reason they struggle, guys. There really is. My vet, who happened to be the vet who put Shenzi to sleep, I went to the vets the other day with Pumbaa for just to pick up a cone, really routine, and a bloke's dog had been run over. I happened to have to message Giles the next day about a client, and I said, I hope you've recovered from yesterday. What a way to, he'd had a week off, what a way to come back to work. And he went, it was really harrowing. And he's someone I really, really respect. And to hear him say it was harrowing made me cry, if I'm perfectly honest. And I am always so grateful that at the end of the day, and this is, I'm going to sound a bit shitty, at the end of the day, we're not the ones that make the decision. We're not the ones that, yes, we can recommend euthanasia and we can have that be our recommendation. But it need not, we're not the ones that have that on our shoulders necessarily. At the end of the day, the vet does it and the owner makes the decision. The owner is the one that says go ahead and the vet is the one that does it. Yes, we may recommend it. I mean, I had to write Shenzi's report in order to recommend euthanasia, and it was the most painful 8 pages of my life. And that's going to bring on tears again. But that report was one of the hardest reports I've ever had to write. But at the end of the day, I wasn't the one pulling the trigger. I am so grateful to the vet. Ruby, vets deserve the props. Yes, I disagree with vets. Yes, every now and again I will get an email from a vet and have to go away and take 10 deep breaths before I even think about replying to it. No, when it comes to especially behavioural euthanasia, vets, that you're fucking champions. If any of you are watching this, you really are. And I'm so grateful for your existence to give me that emotional detachment and to take that off my shoulders. So be grateful to your vets. Kind of, I personally, if I go through behavioural euthanasia with a vet, I will drop something by the next week, and I will offer to support them in any way I can, emotionally and or professionally. Exactly. We really, really aren't the ones causing the act. And yes, it sucks. You should always be grateful for the fact that you aren't the one who stuck the needle in. It's a grim thought, but I found a lot of comfort in that, and I had an awful lot of, when I first realised that, I had so much more respect for vets, and I really wish that other behaviour practitioners and other vet kind of dog trainers would at least extend that appreciation to vets. Certainly, I agree with some of you on the disagreements, but it doesn't mean you can be a knob about it, really. And another thing that I would recommend is that you put some form of, let's say you do puppy classes, you do, and even do this if you're not a behaviour practitioner, if you do life skills classes, but specifically puppy classes, consider putting on your intake forms, have you ever had a dog euthanized for behavioural reasons? I once had a puppy client come to me, and first week of class, they came over and they looked like they were about to burst into tears, and it had been a really good first session, so I was a little bit like, okay, listen to them. And she said, look, our previous dog was put down because it bit a lot of people. And as soon as I said that, I went, right, okay, how can I help you? And they asked me about puppy biting. They asked if they could send me footage of their puppy nipping and things like that, just to confirm if it were normal. And I really think everyone, if you've got a client in any of your classes who has had a dog put down for behavioural reasons, you need to understand that. Even if you've never been through it, even if you don't deal with behaviour, you need to appreciate that, so that if they are concerned about a normal dog behaviour, normal puppy biting, you can support them through that appropriately. And that is something that I feel very, very strongly about. So that is on all of my forms now, for reactive rovers, for obvious reasons, for one-to-one work, for puppy classes, for life skills. It is on every single one of my forms. I don't have it on my sports forms purely because my sports classes my sports classes tend to not, if it's behavioural, they get signed up for a different class. But that is something that I hadn't considered beforehand, and now that I've been through behavioural euthanasia, absolutely 100% you should understand if your clients have ever been through that. Right, Edna. So she said, thank you very much for sharing this very difficult topic. On a practical note, are there behavioural issues that you think will almost always end in euthanasia, i.e. that are generally unsolvable? Oh, what a good question. I'm going to go ahead and say no, because I think there are definitely behavioural problems that give me the heebie-jeebies and that I go, ooh. And where I read a form and I go, oh, yikes, I need to now start limiting what behaviour cases I take on. But they are subject to the context that they occur in. If I have at the moment I do have a very scary cockapoo on my books, and I thought she would be just a nice easy resource guide in case. I turned up and I came home and I cried on my floor for 3 hours because I really, really thought she was going to be a euthanasia case. Fortunately, her owner is a wonderful trainer, a wonderful switched-on owner. She is so proactive. She has owned Malinois previously. She's really, really on it, and we have turned the dog around. But if that had been in a pet home, I think it would have ended in euthanasia, if not rehoming. And again, it's one of those where if I have 2 dogs who I think if they had been in a busy family home would have at very least been rehomed, at worst would have been euthanized. I fortunately live in a very quiet household. It is just me, it's just my mum. I'm obviously a pet professional. My mum is a very intelligent woman and is very interested in the dogs. She will, if I pass her a book, she'll read it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my home is not your average pet home. And I've managed to keep both of my dogs safe from any form of euthanasia or anything like that. So there are definitely some things that worry me. And there are some things, for example, if there has been a bite to a child in the household, it's more likely that I will recommend rehoming. That need not necessarily be a euthanasia case though. Quite often you can find a rehome that is very suitable for that. That's not a guaranteed thing, so it's not a case of if the dog is 100% bitten a child, it's going elsewhere. It's more the management concerning that, and what the bite occurred over. So yes, there are things that I consider kind of warning signs towards euthanasia / rehoming. No, I wouldn't go ahead and say that any of those will 100% lead to euthanasia or are generally unsolvable, because it very much depends on the household that they're found in. Does that make sense, Edna? Have you got any more questions on that? And I'm going to move on, Edna, but when you get your response to that, when that comment comes through, I'll jump back to you. Something I wish other pet professionals would know, and this is anyone, this is groomers, this is vet techs, dog walkers, dog trainers, puppy trainers, people who only do training walks, people who only do behaviour, all of you, every single one of you. If you have a fellow professional who has gone through a behavioural euthanasia case, support them. Don't be careful about asking for the details of the case, and if the person going through it has shared those details of the case with you, do not give your opinion unless you are asked for it. What upset me was when someone asked for the details of the case, I shared them because I was raw about it, because I felt I wanted reassurance. And they kept asking questions, and actually it made me start to doubt myself, and I just refuse to talk to the person about it now. Not rudely or anything like that. If they message me about it, I just ignore them. And I'm very careful about who I discuss it with. But if you've got a pet professional going through anything like this, even if they've not necessarily been involved in the case, support them through it. Ask them if they're okay. Ask them if you can do anything to help. Ask if they want to talk about the case. when I was deciding whether or not to put Shenzi through behavioural euthanasia, wanted to talk about it. Ask them if they'll share videos with you. If they say no, bloody well respect it, because it is raw. Everyone's got an opinion on it, and everyone's opinion is different. Like I said, everyone's line on when to euthanize a dog for behavioural reasons is different. And at the end of the day, it's not your decision. It's not your place to have an opinion. By all means, you do have an opinion, but it's not your place to share it. And respect that, really, really do. There are loads of things that can help, just going out for a walk with someone. I went to a conference a few months after, I feel like 6 months after Shenzi was euthanized, and in the evening it all came out, and the person who I was speaking to was brilliant. They were so helpful. They reassured me, especially if someone is speaking to you about it as pet professionals after the fact. Do not give your opinion, especially if that opinion is different. After the fact, you can change nothing. This is why I'm not attempting to explain what decisions made us led us to say that Shenzi could not be rehomed or anything like that. I'm not going to attempt to explain all of that. I'm not going to attempt to give you the details and justify it, because someone will disagree with me and someone will go, oh, here's my opinion, and I don't care. I'm really, just frankly, I don't care about people's opinions on it, because it's done. Like, if you have a different opinion, you're just going to make me feel crappy about it, and I'm not going to put myself in that situation. Yes, I will do these talks. Yes, I will talk about some of the things. If someone asks me a question from a standpoint of learning, I may share an answer. It may not be the whole answer, but I have never, ever since it happened, I've been incredibly careful not to get people's opinions, or not to put anything on social media that invites opinions, because I have the opinions of the people who have all of the details of the case, who know all the veterinary information, who know all the behavioural information, who know all the household information and the demographics of that household. They know it all, and that you cannot impart that. I could give someone my report, and again, they would still disagree with me, but my report is just my report. It doesn't have the medical information in it as well. So, yeah, if someone's speaking to you about behavioural euthanasia and after the fact, and you have an opinion, keep it to yourself, please. As someone who got those opinions after the fact, it's just going to make the person feel crappy. If you agree with them, and if you think it was the right thing, you can say that, but bear in mind, they may not want your opinion, and they may, I've had comments in here telling me that I didn't let Shenzi down, that I see, even that is bringing tears to my eyes. And yes, they're helpful, but no, sometimes I don't want to hear them, because, like I say, they make me cry, and things like that. So that is pretty much me done, but I'm going to hang around for a good kind of 5-10 minutes in case anyone's got any questions, or they have anything that they want to discuss with me further, and I'm just going to catch up on the comments. Yeah, Edna, so Edna said, my response was great, thanks. I 100% agree that context is everything. I think shelters have huge problems around responsibility with dogs that have a bite history, and those dogs are often put to sleep. Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and say I don't know much about rescue. I don't know much about shelters. It's an area where I'm quite naive. But I have studied it in an academic context for my master's, and when rescues are so full, why would you justify trying to rehome a dog with a bite history when you can fill that shelter with dogs that don't have bite histories? And obviously that's not a guaranteed thing. I'm not saying every dog that has a bite history should be put to sleep. Both of my dogs would be put to sleep if that were the case. But it is, I can appreciate that shelters use that as a judgment of whether or not a dog should take up valuable rescue space. I totally do. And like I said, it's not... Again, that's not somewhere where I think my opinion is necessary. And I've heard cases from dogs in shelters where people are outraged because the dog was put down. But at the end of the day, would there have been a better candidate, an easier, more easily rehomable candidate in that rescue that could have taken that space? Yes. Do I think that dog should have had the space over the dog that was a less easily rehomable candidate? Yes. Am I going to give anyone flack for euthanizing that dog? No. Because it's not going to help the person that pulled the trigger there. It's not gonna make anyone feel better about it. It's not somewhere I have the knowledge to, or the influence to bother giving my opinion. I have an opinion, and sometimes my opinion differs from the actual story, but like I say, it's not my place to give that opinion. And it's more about understanding the factors that go into making the decisions for euthanasia, for behavioural, or in the case of rescue, possibly space reasons more than behaviour, but behaviour contributes to that. Understanding that generally, unless you are directly involved, you have no idea what the people involved are going through, and it's just not somewhere you need to be given an opinion. Right, has anyone else got any other questions, anything they want to share? Obviously, if you don't want to share it yourself, you can always speak to me about it privately. You don't have to share it publicly, because I'm telling you, it's hard to share it publicly. And you've seen that, so I'm not going to go ahead and judge anyone for that or anything. So Mary has said, I had one here, bred by a friend to rehab and rehome, who bit without provocation a person and would attack other dogs. The breeder and I agreed that he needed to be let go. I lost it. Let go. The clinic I took him to refused, attempted to shame me, and tried to take him away from me, claiming I was unfit. Human biting from my breed is totally uncommon and way out of character. He was not a candidate for rehabilitation, as it was not working at all. Mary, I am so sorry you went through that. We actually had the same thing with Shenzi. The first vets we took him to, because of his age, they implied that his owner simply didn't want him anymore. Which was not true, and they implied that because he was so young, there was absolutely no way that his behaviour couldn't be changed, and that he wasn't a fit candidate for behavioural modification. At that point, we had tried. They had no recommendations for how we could change that behaviour. They had no recommendations of who we could go to. They found him a rescue space, but the rescue was totally inappropriate. The rescue wouldn't take him without the owner's permission as well, which is why Shenzi actually ended up coming back to my vets to be euthanized, because I had a better working relationship with that vet, and that vet took the time to read my report, and actually he said it sounded like we had done everything we could, and like the other vet, he had no recommendations for what we could do further, but he actually chose to help us with that, versus just being like, no, you don't want the dog anymore, so we're not going to euthanize it for you, but we're not going to tell you what you can do to help it out. And again, I say that with all the love in the world for vets. If that original vet had put Shenzi to sleep, they would have my respect as much as Giles does, but unfortunately they didn't, and they weren't particularly helpful. And it's bloody traumatic when that happens. It is really, really vile when you've made that decision. You go to the vets and you go, I don't know what other choice we have, and they go, no. It's that was the day I cried a lot, and that was that was not a good day. So you do have my absolute sympathy there, Mary. I am so sorry. And yeah, it is awful. And there are vets out there who will say that, which is why I say get multiple professionals on board who will support you and who you feel you can ask questions, and who respect you for it as well. It's not an easy decision. The original vet we went to was not someone who respected the decision we made at all. She thought we were just trying to get rid of the dog, which was quite simply not the case. All of us loved that dog to the bottom of our hearts. And none of us wanted to just get rid of him at all. So Charlotte said, you are so incredibly brave to be talking so openly about such a difficult and under-addressed topic. I wish there was more safe spaces and more behaviour professionals to discuss this. Well, guys, I'm not going to go ahead and say I'm happy to discuss it, but I will discuss it, because it's something that needs discussing more. And I think the more it's discussed, the less we're going to, as collectively as behaviour professionals, run into opinions that are less supportive when it comes to behavioural euthanasia. That's my goal with doing these discussions. They suck, and I don't necessarily enjoy doing them, and I have been dreading this all morning. I rented out an agility field before this, and I was coming home and I was like, I really don't want to do this talk. But it's really important, and I think if you take on behaviour, if you're thinking about taking on behaviour, you need to appreciate what that is, worst case scenario, and it's this. And I like most things, I feel like talking about it is going to help everyone understand it that much more and appreciate what goes into it and realise that it's not necessarily somewhere where you need to give your opinion all the time. Knowing that there are professionals out there if you ever go through it. And I know for a fact, because I have been told, that my talk has helped people who have gone through behavioural euthanasia as owners, and it continues to do so. And if that's all I achieve, then that's worth it for me. If it takes a little bit of the sorrow away from someone who has gone through it, it's worth it. It really, really is. And if anyone ever wants to talk to me about it, if you're going through it as a behaviour professional, I'll support you through it. If you're going through it as an owner, I'll help you through it. It's not, I did receive a lot of messages about it, and it's not, you do kind of sit there and go, oh, not another one. But it's nice to have that connection. It's nice to know that people are there. And Mary, to be perfectly honest, this is the first time I've opened up about the vet saying no. Because I didn't want to shame the vet. I didn't want to slam the vet. I can't remember their name or what practice they worked with. And I don't want anyone to think I'm against vets and that vets should immediately euthanize. No. But yeah, I've always been a little bit embarrassed to share that element of it. But given that you said it, I've levelled with you, and I'm with you there. Yeah, and it is, you do feel like you've failed your dogs. You do feel like you've, especially if you're more than the average pet person, which if you're here, I'm guessing you are, you feel like you have failed. You feel like you shouldn't do the job you do. And it's hard to bounce back from. It is. I've gone through emotional trauma in my lifetime. That was the worst thing I've gone through. And I literally remember waking up the next day and just walking around the house being like, what the fuck do I do with myself now? Because it really is. I count my lucky stars that Shanzi didn't live with me at the time, because if I'd gone downstairs and realised he wasn't there. In some ways, I was very fortunate to have this be my first experience of euthanasia. In others, incredibly unlucky. It was a hell of an experience for a first foster dog and a first euthanasia. But I try and tell myself it can't get much worse. So yeah, it is absolutely something that I think people need to talk about more, and I'm trying to talk about more. It's something I'm trying to find the line on. So I have done since January. I think it was in January I did my first talk on it. I'm planning a few more talks, but obviously I don't want to bum people out or myself. So it is something that I try and balance out, but it's something that I think should definitely be talked about more often. I think euthanasia in general should be talked about more often, but certainly this, I think, is so valuable for everyone involved. And actually so the whole experience I went through, I did learn so much. Certainly wouldn't sign up to go through it again, but I'm grateful for the things I learned. And it helped me change my business to support those who are going through it and to prevent people going through it more often as well. So I actually decided to ditch the majority of my life skills classes and focus almost entirely on puppies and reactive dogs. I don't feel I should benefit financially off fixing reactive dogs. Without doing something to actively prevent it. And I was doing puppies beforehand, but I just weighted a lot more of my time towards prevention as much as the cure. You're very welcome, Ruby. It's all right. Once I started, I was like, oh God, all the comments are going to make me go. And yeah, I felt a lot stronger for this one because I've done it once before. But yeah, that you do just hit a point where you go, oh, here it comes, and there it was. And yeah. Right, guys, I am going to sign off. I'm going to go have some lunch and go and sit out in the sunshine and hug my dogs quite a lot. Like I said, if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me personally, you absolutely can. Let me just jump on and can I type a comment on the live? Yes, I can. Right, I'm just going to type my email in for anyone who wants to shoot me an email. There it is. It is now in the comments from me, and you can shoot me an email if you wish to. I have had a few emails already. Thank you for everyone who emailed me prior to this. It was helpful for me planning my talk and to kind of support you beforehand. Yeah, I kind of hope I don't hear from you, but if I do hear from you, I am happy to support you through it. I am always here to, even if you just want to get it out somewhere, I'm here to listen to that. Have a good day, guys. All of you go out and hug your dogs and enjoy the sunshine, if you have any. We kind of have sunshine, because this is a lot and you need to take care of yourselves. Right, I will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m, I believe, for running Reactive Rovers classes. So if you're a pet professional, come and join me for that. See ya!